Hey, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to today's webinar on how to host, on digital transformation through a mobile membership app. We will be touching on hosting virtual events during it. My name is Edward Wendling, and I'll be your moderator for today and also co-presenting. Before we get started, I got a few housekeeping items to go over. Everybody in attendance has been muted so we can have a smooth presentation, but we will be taking questions at the end, and we hope you all will have some to ask to us. On the right hand of your screen, you should see the GoToWebinar navigation pane. Near the bottom of this pane is a question section where you can post your questions, and you can really post them at any time during the webinar. We're going to answer them at the end and go through as many as we can. If you have any technical difficulties during the presentation, please also use the question section, and we'll try to address them as well. We are also delighted to let you know that we are an approved ASAE certified association executive provider. So the webinar you're attending today is worth 1 credit that you can apply towards your CAE application or renewal. If you'd like to learn more about that program, just visit ASAE site at asaecenter.org/CAE. Finally, at the end of today's webinar, after we finish Q&A and the webinar ends, you'll be presented with a survey screen. If you wouldn't mind, take a moment to answer the questions and let us know how we did. To receive CAE credit, it's helpful for us to know that you did that. So with that being said, we're ready to get started. So let me go ahead and turn it over to our main presenter, Brad Latour, co-founder and COO of Clouder.
Edward, thank you so much, and thank you to all for joining us today. Don't go too far, Edward. Looking forward to hearing some of the updates that you have in your virtual events that you've been hosting and leveraging the app to do that. So that's going to be a lot of fun. Before we get started and dig in kind of the broader topic, I think it's helpful to unpack a little bit how we got here, right? Looking at some of the impacts. Certainly, we don't need to look too far to see all the negative impacts of COVID-19, whether that's the 40 million people who are unemployed, the complete devastation of the hotel and airlines industry, all of travel. But there has been some winners. Certainly, 30% of the workforce is working from home. Most of that was forced, but now, 60 days later, you're seeing major companies shift and start to talk about some of our staff will never come back. We have figured out how to leverage technology effectively. We have lost no efficiency. In some cases, we have gained efficiency. I know our office, we are launching a new plan on how to go back to the office in more of a hybrid view. And our lens is, how do we look at going to the office in a remote workforce almost as an employee benefit, so that perhaps we can add that to our employee benefits to attract new talent as we go forward. Events were absolutely crushed, as we all know. Reported that 56 million people were affected by those cancellations. Virtually every major conference has been canceled up until about September 1st. I know we've paused all corporate travel through at least October 1st as well for our company. And that really forced us to think about our revenue streams differently, think about engagement differently, think about the value of being a member of your association differently. I think, for so many decades, we've leaned on the real value of face-to-face interaction. And for most associations, that means events. And that revenue is anywhere from 30 to 50% of revenue for your total budget. So causes you to both be concerned, but also how do you become innovative? Putting it in perspective, some of the apps and some of the technology that has demonstrated staggering growth. People spent 20% more time using apps in the first quarter of this year than they did last year. That is a dramatic increase. Picking on one company, Zoom, which we hear an awful lot about, user base is up 300% in 1 month. They are still the #1 free app in the App Store, and they have been since March 18th. So that's pretty dramatic. They not only grabbed the position, but they've kept it. And to further put that in percentage, their daily active users is up 20x. So they had 200 million in the month of March, and they had 10 million in the month of December. Last stat I want to share with you is certainly nice to see companies and organizations transitioning and innovating using technology to work remotely, but that doesn't always mean it's perfect. Certainly, there's a high degree of us who were forced to be remote, feeling isolated, and certainly the numbers there speak to that isolation. So how do we manage that effectively? How do we speak about it without losing, really any efficiency and work throughput from the team? When we think about our communication channels and how we're being informed broadly as consumers, usually it's kind of the regular channels. So news, our social media platforms, whether that's Twitter, Facebook, Snapchat, Instagram, LinkedIn, those have all seen a dramatic uptick. And then the standard association standby, which is email. I think email is challenged more than ever because every single brand that you've ever done business with or ever had an affiliation with pretty much sent you an email in the first 30 days from about March 15th to April 15th saying what they were doing about COVID, whether you cared or not. So it made email even less valuable. And all that we commonly refer to as noise. So I think today what we're really here to talk about is how do you as an organization cut through that noise? How do you get your message through those traditional channels that are just kind of being overrun with distractions and obviously demographics? Your younger members, they pretty much just ignore email at this point. So thinking about the growth in mobile as a broad category, and how do you take that undeniable growth shifted to mobile, looking at yourself, what do you do on your phone all day long? The average person spends 5 to 5.5 hours looking at their phone. So what are the apps you're using? How are you using it, as both a consumer? And you take those exact same properties and you say, how do we benefit from that? And how do we transition? And ultimately, you're creating a one-to-one link directly with your member using a year-round, kind of mobile solution, right? So the key is year-round. Event apps are fantastic, and they were really good for physical events. They are far more challenged now because if you're having a virtual event, obviously nobody's there, and you want that conversation to continue well after the event. So you really need to be thinking about, how do I bring everyone together, but more importantly, how do I keep them together? And if you think of your year-round member engagement app almost as mission control, think of it as the on-ramp to all the value of your association so that your members can consume content, they can share content, they can communicate with one another, they can interact with sponsors. That one is, becoming far more important than it ever has been before, because you need that non-dues revenue, that sponsorship revenue that you could pretty easily count on year in, year out at your physical meetings. You have to get that revenue, and it means you're likely going to need to be innovative, and having a year-round piece of real estate to continue to present that value proposition is really, really important. Let me just go through a couple of quick high-level feature sets. And while I'm talking about them individually, and I'll share some specific examples of what we've seen some of our clients do and how they've used them, I also really want you to be thinking about how they work collectively in concert with one another. So something we talk an awful lot about is not thinking about features in a silo. If you are on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, some of the more popular social platforms, the reason why they're effective is because they're very clean design and they're all connected. So you're not feeling like you're going into these isolated rooms every time you click on a new feature. They're all right there. Push notifications quickly has become the best trigger. Think of it as breaking news. Anything that, in and around COVID that you wanted to get the word out on, you're seeing here some actual push notifications from the early days, late March, from the Texas Restaurant Association that did a masterful job using push notifications to give that breaking news directly to their membership. So whether it was an update on a policy by a local politician or, new cleaning guidelines, president, or messages from their president, from other, state legislators, they were able to distribute that information very quickly. And the more targeted, the more specific the message, the better. So think about, in the case of Texas Restaurant Association, they could segment out and send a push notification only to those restaurants in the Houston metro area, for example. Then it becomes really powerful because you're not trying to blanket all of your members the same way. And we've grown, very accepting of push notifications. It's kind of fun to watch when we bring on new customers. There's always a little bit of hesitation to think that you're going to disrupt or annoy your members by sending them push notifications. But remember, they are opted into this. Think about your own push notifications. So, why do you like getting breaking news notifications? Or, maybe you have a sports app that's your favorite. Why do you like getting breaking news about your favorite team? Because you've signed up for it. It's important to you. And arguably your members think there's a lot of value in being a member of your association. So that information is important to them. And again, if it's specific, then it's even more beneficial. Newsfeed, when we talk about member engagement, we often talk about it in kind of three key buckets. So organization to member, member to member, and sponsor to member. So the newsfeed is really the best example of that organization to member layer of engagement. So you can share content with all of your members, whether it's coming from the organization or you allow your members to also post in the newsfeed. And then it really takes on the life of a private social network. So in our case, all of our apps are a closed network, so you have to have credentials to get in. And there is a lot of very specific benefits to having that, private news feed. So you can share, you can allow that content to be shared from individual to individual. Obviously, you can comment on the content. So that, in contrast just to receiving an email, it's really a one-way proposition. You, the organization, sent out an email. Maybe they read it, maybe they don't, but you can't gauge on, comments about it, likes about it, the basics that you would find in a LinkedIn or a Facebook. There's a lot of throughput to being able to measure comments on a specific topic, which could drive your marketing calendar to add more content on those pieces that got the most traction. Other things to think about is not just copy, but video. Gosh, video, both synchronous and asynchronous video is becoming so powerful because it breaks it up. That also starts to mirror what you would see in LinkedIn or Facebook or Instagram, copy mixed in with the video. We're seeing a growing number of our clients also use live feeds, and that works great if you're contemplating a virtual event, which Edward will talk about momentarily. So think about the different forms that you can drop into your news feed to keep it fresh and interesting. And if you're on the big social platforms, it's very easy to go down the proverbial wormhole just by swiping, right? You've seen an article, you watch a video, you see a comment from somebody next thing you know, you're 15, 20 minutes in and you're still engaged, with that content, which, is ultimately what you're after. Other things to consider with your news feed is, we're seeing more and more podcasts. So that's another way to think about MP3, MP4. And the content lives forever, right? So you can pin the most important stuff to the top for a short period of time. You can allow your members to filter it based on what's really important to them, either by search tag or by subgroups. So all different ways to think about highly targeted delivery of the content that is most important to your membership. Another critical feature set that we've seen just skyrocket in the last 60 days is forums. So some of you may have web-based listserv type communities like a Higher Logic. If you do and it's going great, then pull it into your year-round member engagement app. You know, you don't have to reinvent the wheel, especially if you already have a good base of users. If you don't, you might consider, you know, a native forums, like that's something like we offer, where you can create the categories and allow your members to drive the discussion. And then, you know, you should be able to see, well, who's specifically engaged in that discussion, who's making comments in that discussion. And, you know, here's a couple of examples of our clients that, you know, you can see, you know, live screenshots of what the discussion is, the types of categories that have been created. And then you can even have staff, you know, jump in there and comment as well if it's appropriate. But the nice thing about forums, if you set them up properly, the heavy lifting really falls on the side of your members themselves. So it's that layer of engagement that is that member to member engagement, right? They're looking to each other now more than ever before. What did you do to get the PPP? Did you go to a big bank? Did you go to a community bank? I'm filling out these 3 forms. Did you fill out any other forms? Are there any pitfalls in the form? Like all that very specific information to share, that's where the value is created. So, you know, they know exactly kind of to where to go, how to engage with each other. And we have seen traffic across our forums up about 4x over, you know, kind of pre-COVID, pre-March 19th timeframe. And it's all about, you know, members helping members. Another valuable feature that you might consider is a resource center. So a resource center is where you might drop in all of your really important documents. You can create, you know, folders, however many folders you may want, and then allow those folders, you know, for your members to print it. They could email it to themselves. They could share it with another member, all their native sharing feature functionality. So it may feel one-dimensional, but think of it this way. You are taking advantage of where the attention is, and you are not requiring your member to go back out, you know, to some portal to gain access to this content. Keep it where their focus is. Their focus is in their phone. So just make it easier to grab the information as well. You know, if they're, you know, younger, they'll probably read it right on their phone. Maybe if they're older demographic, maybe they want to print it out or email it to themselves. They can do all that with their basic sharing feature functionality. As I touched on earlier, when I was giving you samples of the types of content in the news feed, we're also seeing more and more podcasts. So you could create a folder just of, you know, your archives, MP3s or MP4s of your podcast. You could do the same exact thing with recorded webinars. So after you've recorded the live event, put it, you know, back into the resource center so that it could be, you know, checked on in the future. Messaging, you know, we've all used messaging very effectively. We've seen it taken to kind of new heights because you can have inside of the app, the messaging really becomes a link to a lot of the various features that are set up. A couple of very specific examples that we've seen grow quite a bit is an individual member is consuming content on the newsfeed. They hit the share button. They share that content with another member. So now they've extended the life of the content and it's created engagement on a one-on-one basis. Same thing also persists in the forums. So if I'm reading a forum and I think it might be valuable for Edward as well, I might just share the thread with him and ask him to jump in and participate. So when he clicks on the thread, he knows right where to go and he can join us without missing a beat. So that's how messaging really becomes the glue through some of the other existing features that we're kind of talking about today. Just a quick moment on Pennsylvania Dental Association, one of our existing customers. Their app is called PDA Go, and they have done really a tremendous job throughout the entire crisis. you'll notice, I specifically wanted to give you exact examples. They went ahead and they created an avatar called COVID-19 News, so that when they sent out the push notification, you'll notice that if you are a dentist in Pennsylvania, the likelihood is this is going to get your attention. Your office is closed. You're not allowed to practice. So any little bit of information with COVID-19 news from PDA Go will absolutely get your attention. You'll notice the third one there, that's just the standard PDA communication. So it's not as breaking news centric, but it still is triggering the membership to go back and check it out. They've got, again, very detailed information to drive me to go into the app, click on it, and go from there. They have done a very good job of pulling together and allowing the feature sets or allow the full feature set to work together. So you'll notice on the left hand with their forums, they've got ADA information that they wanted to share specifically with their PDA members. So they use that as an opportunity to share it really effectively. They created resource centers. They had a specific folder that they created, as you can see there in the middle, coronavirus, COVID-19. So anything that was related to coronavirus, that was a document, they put it in that resource folder. All that content can be searched. And again, as they're putting out new news on the news feed, they've got their forums and they're having a lot of discussion and dialogue there. And then they're further supporting it with documentation. One thing I thought was really smart about their approach is they really look at all of their communication tools in a modern kind of cross-channel promotion mentality. So if you look at the far left, this is their Twitter feed, which they've actually also pulled into their app news feed, so that again, they're not asking their members to go to Twitter, then find PA Dental Association's handle. It's pulled right inside of the newsfeed to make it easier for them. But they're always promoting the app as well. So they've got Twitter, they've got the app, they've got some other social properties. But you can see consistently, even in their email, which is in the far right, they are reminding their members that they have PDA Go, and for the latest and greatest, that's what they should use. That's what they should download. So it's not just send out one email and expect everybody to jump on. Like anything else in marketing, it takes consistency of message, and the more you use your all of your omni-channel to get the word out, the more effective it's going to be. And this was cool. Once they hit 1,000 users, they used that as an opportunity to kind of really celebrate their membership, because it's obviously the members that took the time, saw the value, and used the app, shared it with other physicians inside the membership. And you can kind of see here. So this is a live screenshot. Once they sent out their, hey, great job, we hit 1,000. I mean, you got some really powerful feedback, from their members. When you have your members saying things like this, that they're bragging about your communication tools that you're bringing forward, you're putting yourself in a position to be viewed differently, right? It's not just I joined PDA because I had to and everybody else was doing it. They've got innovative tools, modern tools. I have direct access to the organization. I have direct access to other fellow members if I have questions. And they've made it all very easy for me to do inside of my app here. So I thought that was worthwhile showing too. And then, the results, right? It's all about the results at the end of the day. You don't buy technology, app or any of it if you're not looking to really achieve results. And, you should have that same high standard for your year-round membership app as well. So, for PDA, just again, as a brief example, you can see the lower right graph there. They definitely increased their usage. They leverage COVID-19 to really do that. And it's also generating membership value in the form of new members and retention. And the post on the right is, I thought, did a nice job giving it a little bit of flair and, thanking their app users for reaching 1,000. It's about 50% of their active user base, just to kind of put it in perspective. And it took them about 90 days to get there. So just like any tool that you have, it doesn't happen overnight. Just because it's mobile doesn't mean it's magic. It does take all of the best practices and promotion and consistency of brand and message to get your members out there. But once they're in, by and large, you get them to stay. And you'll notice kind of the top navigation, since this is a direct screenshot, you can see how they set up their news, and you can also see how they also brought in their Twitter handle as well. Something that we didn't expect much, but again, to PDA's credit, because all of them were forced to work remotely, they created groups, messaging groups inside the app, and they just had kind of ongoing dialogue instead of emailing each other back and forth. I think it was the marketing squad and the meetings crew or something to that effect. So they had this ongoing discussion, just like you would with your friends in a group text. So they really took it an extra step and didn't just think about their year-round mobile app for their members and the link to their members. They're using it themselves, in between departments and staff. So I thought that was something that was really smart and also, worth sharing, and, beats loading up your inbox, which, none of us really enjoy that approach at all. So I hope that gives you a little bit of perspective on how to think about year round. I think this next section you're really going to enjoy, because Edward's going to give you some very specific examples of what his challenge was, how he had to quickly pivot and think about virtual. But one great thing, and Edward and I were talking about this, earlier today, is, a really powerful technology platform evolves with the usage. So, we use Slack in our office, and the more we use it, the more we uncover the value and, start to use, different groups and features that are available. And your year-round membership engagement app should be no different. I think, to Edward's credit, and I don't want to steal his thunder, so I'm passing you controls now, Edward, to you should be able to navigate around. Is that giving you the
Thanks,
option?
Brad. Wait, let me see if I click. I don't think I have it yet.
All right. Tell you what, I'll just drive for you if you don't mind,
Okay.
and let me go ahead and just hand it off to you. And if you would give our listeners today some deep insight into how you thought about the challenge, and it was probably stated on the front end, but ASI is not just a partner; they're also a client. So they had a unique perspective in how they could use their app and leverage it for virtual events. So with that, take it away.
Okay, awesome. Thanks, Brad, and good afternoon, everyone. Yeah, as Brad said, I work for ASI, and we're an AMS provider. Our product's IMIS, which you may have heard about it, but more importantly, we're an actual Clouder client. So we use the Clouder app, to use Brad's term, as a mission control center for our clients and our partners. And we've used it for about 18 months now, and also used it for our partner and client conference last year. So we had experience using it for the client conference, partner and client conference last year. So to give you kind of a little background on what we had to do to switch from a physical conference to a virtual conference, our event was March 25th and 26th, so just 2 months ago. Feels like a lifetime ago, but 2 months ago. And we didn't make the decision to switch to a virtual conference until about 10 days before. So we were right in that kind of worst time possible where nobody really knew what to do. We had an emergency meeting on a Wednesday night, made the decision, had about a Thursday and a Friday to scramble around, and then basically had a week to get it done. So one thing I've kind of reflected on as I've done a number of these presentations and talked with a lot of clients is that we were really already in a good place because we had the mobile app in place. We had a year-round mobile app. So we already had adoption. We already had clients and partners used to downloading it. We weren't scrambling with a couple weeks to try to get everyone to re-download the app that they downloaded last year and deleted. And in addition, something that's become really apparent to us is that a year-round app like Clouder provides, I think, is really geared first and foremost towards communication and networking. The clients I talk to who are coming off of event-only apps are realizing that those apps are really more about being an add-on to the physical event. Whether it's just the agenda or like a exhibit guide, something like that. And it just doesn't really do the trick for a virtual event. So we were really set up for that, and that was a big help for us to make the shift. And just a couple things I want to point out on the screen. As I've done these presentations, I realize, I'm not pointing out the images on the screen, and I just want to point those out. What you're seeing on the screen comes from our app. Notice the little comment below. This is the first conference I do from the couch. That's posted in the app. You look at that picture of one of our attendees watching in the UK getting settled in. On the right side, you can see there's a video I posted. So as I got up that morning for the event, I was actually the sort of the host of the event. I took my camera out, I recorded a short video, and I just posted it via the app. So we really had a lot of activity in the app, which I'm going to go over. And if you go to the next slide, Brad, and you can just click to pull open all the points. So first thing to make a point is that the Clouder app has everything you get from an event app. So, all the bells and whistles that everybody likes in an event app: sortable agenda, session ratings, slides and handouts, presenter profiles, exhibitor list, speaker list, all of that already exists. So we had that in place. We're ready to go. A couple things that we also added to it that I want to highlight. If you look at that middle screenshot there and kind of follow your eyes up to the top to where it says opening session and description, we actually have a link to a recorded presentation and also to the live presentation, which we did through GoToWebinar. So we have it set up so that if you're using the app at home, which all the attendees were, and you needed to step away from your screen, which is stuck in one spot, and had to be mobile at home, you could actually just tap into the live session, but certainly you could access the recording after the event and session slides. On the right-hand side is the screenshot there is kind of the main event screenshot, and Clouder's got some great features that allow you to really customize each event in terms of what material you want to make available. And at the top you see on-demand library, I think is a term. So we were able to link right from the app to an on-demand library that we have and pass credentials back and forth. So that's kind of a good example of how you use the app as your mission control center, and you can access maybe web-based resources that start to get difficult for your members to keep track of all those different URLs. Now we have them all in one. So we're good to go with that. Now, if you go to the next slide, Brad, and pull it all out. Now, this is where a year-round app really shines in a virtual event. And also keep in mind, you may be thinking about a virtual event coming up. Maybe it's your annual conference, but next year, knock on wood, that annual conference is going to be in person, but I bet you're going to need to do a virtual component because you're going to find how successful that is. You're going to have members who expect that. You're also probably going to realize that some of the smaller events that you might have, like a committee meeting, a regional event, a one-day event, that you typically wouldn't have had a companion app for, maybe those are going to be virtual events now. So again, the benefit with the year-round app is your members already use it. You're not scrambling around trying to get them to download it, and you can use it for all your events. So where it really became successful for us was that we basically use the app to replicate the experience you would get from the hotel or conference venue. So when you go to your virtual event, you're going to be focused on, and rightly so, how you're going to deliver your educational sessions and your general conference, your program, basically. And you're probably going to use something like GoToMeeting or Zoom or WebEx, lots of tools out there. But what those don't replicate are the side conversations, the meeting new people, connecting with old friends, the Q&A that continues in the hall after the event. None of that is captured on those platforms. So we really drove all of that activity in the app, and we did it in a couple of ways. So the first is push notifications. So with 2 weeks to go, we told everybody who was registered, we sent them an email, said, this is your notification that we're going virtual. From here on out, communication is in the app. We don't have time for, the big, heavy, old-fashioned marketing email that, someone's got to build and then pull the list and send. Our notifications, our communication from here on out is going to be real time. It's going to be short. It's going to be modern. It's going to be via the app. So all of our communication before, during, and after, all app-based. Then the interactive news feed. This is kind of the heart of the app, in my opinion. So the news feed in Clowder's app is really exactly like you would experience, or could be if you configure it this way, and we did, what you would experience with a Facebook news feed or a LinkedIn news feed. So instead of your communication being all you broadcasting out to your members and just sort of broadcasting out into the abyss, with the news feed, your members are able to like, share, comment, and also add their own posts to your news feed. So the news feed then becomes that experience of a sort of offhanded post that somebody puts. Offhand is not the great term, but let's say organic or real post that somebody puts on your screenshot on the screen on the far right. You see that one from Joel Resnick with his hand up saying, "I have a question." What you don't see in that is that then spawned a discussion as people answered it and people had other questions. So his simple post there spawned its own sort of breakout discussion. So we made it very clear to attendees, hey, the activity is going to be in the app. And then we did a few other things. So we started off the conference by saying, okay, you've got your screen in front of you. We're about to kick it off via GoToWebinar, but you also should have your app in front of you. And we would love if you would take a moment and post to the app, to the news feed, and tell everybody about your setup at home. Take a picture. Let us know how you're experiencing the conference. And we got all kinds of great posts and comments. Some were pictures of pets, some were pictures of setups. Others were just simple comments to the group. And that really makes everybody feel like they're part of an event. They're not just sitting there watching and again being broadcasted to you. You're actually getting people involved. Then what we also thought in advance, and we're not surprised, but pleased that what we planned actually did happen, is that when you do a virtual event and you ask people to then ask their questions, the Q&A after the presentation, you get a lot more than you typically would in an in-person event. And so we knew that we probably were going to need more time for Q&A than we could build in our session. So we planned it out so that we had discussion forums for those sessions. And our direction was, okay, we're going to do the live Q&A, but now the Q&A portion's over. We're moving to our next program item. So if you have other additional questions, you want to continue talking about this topic, go to the app and you'll find a discussion forum and the presenter will be there. And so the discussions continued in those areas. We also did, something other that a little other thing we did that was really well received was we got as many short video clips as we could ahead of time, and we posted those video clips in the app. So while we were also asking people to kind of post them in real time, we did queue up some video clips from presenters, from staff, even from attendees, and of course, most importantly, from sponsors. So we gave sponsors a lot of visibility in the app, and they were really pleased about that. Another element, that you might not always think about is private chat messaging. So the Clowder app has a full chat messaging module, if you will, that is, just like you would get with WhatsApp or Facebook Messenger or Snapchat or other chat messaging capabilities. So we directed our attendees. We said, make sure you use the chat feature, reach out to your old friends, feel free to reach out to new friends. That is your way to have private group messages, private group chats if you don't already have them. Real quick, a couple more slides here. So on your screen is a bit about driving attendees to the app. Again, for us, it wasn't as much of an issue because it's a year-round app. So I want to encourage everybody to expand your thinking beyond the virtual event coming up. Think in terms of your virtual year, because that's what you've got coming up. It's a virtual year. So don't just think about what do I need to do to support this event. Think broader and think about how you can extend that virtual event experience, but also just the virtual experience in general. So for us, we're not scrambling. People had downloaded it, but we used other means. Obviously social media is an element, and we continue to do some things where we're only communicating within the app. One in particular, I'll give you an example. We had a Zoom happy hour at the end of each day, but we didn't give out the link and we didn't give out the password until right before the happy hour, and we only gave that in the app. So folks knew that that's where they had to be. If you want to know where the happy hour is, you got to be where it is. You're not going to get it some email. You're not going to print it out. You're not going to go to a website. It's in the app. Brad, you can go to the next slide. So what does this all mean? Well, let's talk about the virtual success that comes from it. The first thing is that, again, just about everybody used the app. And we had a little bit more than 400, I think we had 425-ish attendees. And that, by the way, was 60% higher than our in-person event. So again, something else to think about is you're likely going to get a bigger number than you did in your in-person event. You want to be able to make sure you can accommodate all those folks. So just a bunch of stats on the screen. Let me just point out a couple that we think are really powerful. From those 400 attendees, over 60,000 news post impressions. So that means those attendees were in the app looking at all of those news posts as they came through. Almost 2,000 of those news posts were clicked on. Somebody actually hit the news post to drill down and get more info. Well over 1,000, someone took the time to say, I like this post. Almost 9,000 event views, so that's 9,000 times the event section was accessed. Over 2,000 forum views, that means over 2,000 times somebody was coming into the discussion forum. Over 1,000 individual messages sent via the chat messaging app. So it's private chat messaging. We're not tracking, or we're tracking, but we're not storing it, so we don't know what was sent. But you look at like a feature like that, and you're like, are people going to use it? How do I know they used it? Over 1,000 messages sent. 2,000 resource impressions. So Brad was showing the resource section. That's where we had our material. Over 400 times somebody was looking at another app user's profile view. And then over 30,000 app user impressions. So as someone posts or they come up in a chat, so forth. So much different than an in-person event. We have a ton of activity. Now, how do you know these numbers are good? Well, this is our first event. We'll compare it to additional events coming up, but I'm pretty confident these are good numbers, and we're very pleased with the results there. So on your screen that just popped up on the right-hand side, there's a lot more that went into the virtual event, and we've documented all of that. It's on Clowder's site. Obviously, a big part of it is how we use the mobile app, so you can read all about that. So just go to clowderapps.com/COVID-19, and it's a nice PDF that we put together. Next screen really quick, but it's not over. So the event was so successful, our CEO said, hey, I'd like 3 more of these for the Asia Pacific market, the UK market, Europe market, and the Canada market, and I'd like them done before June 30th. So successful that we're doing that. And one of the great things about being able to do this again is we really learned a few things from the first time around that we improved for the next time around, in particular making the links to the live event and the recorded event more visible through the app. So we really took what we learned and we are leveraging it in the app to make it even better. But also we know from stats, our attendees continue to use the app. They're going back to those discussion forums to ask questions. They're accessing the session information. You think about how many times you've gotten the question, where do I get the recording again? The answer is so much simple now. It's in the app. It's not avasol.com/innovations. Go to 2020, select presentations. It's just in the app. It's super easy. And then, of course, because it's a year-round app, they continue to use the features which we want them to use. And now we have great event information right in the app. So you hit the next slide, Brad. So key takeaways, and I think this is what I'm really trying to get you to think by thinking beyond just how do I support my next virtual event, is that ready or not, digital transformation is taking place everywhere. And that digital transformation is a variety of things. It's remote working. So there are some stats, I think Brad showed it earlier on, that people think as many 30 or 40% of the work at home staff is going to stay at home. Virtual events are here to stay. They're going to be companions to physical events. In some places, they're going to replace it. And so my favorite statement is this one in the middle. Any future investment into, I think, technology, period, but definitely mobile technology, should be done with a year-round mindset. Now is the opportunity to really rethink what you're doing and take it as an opportunity to move your organization forward. Next slide again, just a quick promo. Clouderapps.com or clouder.com/COVID-19. Not just the virtual event guide, but a lot of other good resources there. Encourage everyone to go there. And then next slide, Brad. Even more info. So I highly recommend this. If you're considering Clouder and you're interested in learning more, one of the great things about mobile technology is it is so readily available and easy to use. Upper right-hand side, Clouder demo app. Pick up your phone, go to the App Store, search Clouder, download it. Done. That's how easy it is for you to demo it. That's how easy it is for your members to use it. Clouder has some other great stuff, the Native Notes blog, so they're posting lots of resources similar to what we're talking about today. And then lower right-hand side, if you're an ASAE member, really encourage you to download their year-round app. It's also a Clouder app, relatively new. And a great place to get a sense of how a year-round app can function. And then next slide, and then we'll do so keep the conversation going. Hey, if you're interested, book a discovery call. If you're an IMIS client and you're on this registration list, I'll definitely follow up with you. If you're another AMS client, Clouder will follow up with you. But I highly encourage you to take a look at it. Don't sit and wait on it. The more educated you are, the better you are ready to make a decision. So with that, let me go. I know we got some questions. I want to get to those because I want to make sure we get done by the end of the hour. So a couple good ones that I want to bring out. So the first is, I think hopefully I covered it, and this one was answered, or this one was asked a little bit earlier in the session was, let me just scroll up and find it. For hosting mobile virtual events, how does the approach differ from using an event app? So in my opinion, from looking at event apps I've worked with in the past, a couple differences. One is that an event app is meant to be downloaded before the event and deleted after the event. It's really meant to be a companion to the physical event, and often it's kind of like almost like a map. Here's your agenda, and here's where you go find the exhibitors. For a virtual event, you need something that encourages communication and networking. And that is best done through an app that's designed for that and that is meant to be used well before and well after. And that's really, the Clouder app. There's obviously, specific features that you can get into, but I think that's, at a short way to really describe it. Next question, let me ask this one. I'm not sure if I quite understand it, but let me try. And Brad, tell me if you think you know. How long on average does it take to get established member engagement? I'm going to assume that has to do with adoption and engagement for the app.
Yeah, I mean, I think it varies, right? So we talked a little bit about, I gave some examples, you gave some examples. All starts with promotion. So how are you doing the promotion? Are you creative in your promotion? Are you following a lot of the best practices that are out there? And then once they get in there, is there reason to stay and or come back? Um, Mobile is the framework, right? So if you are on Facebook, would you go to Facebook if you had 10 friends and nobody posted anything new, right? So Facebook is not providing the content. Your network of friends and family and colleagues are providing the content, which keeps you coming back. So content is really important. Design is really important. So that really falls, to your app provider. Are they using the latest and greatest design technique? Are they following all of Apple's guidance? Are they following all of Android's guidance? So all those things kind of work together to ensure that you've announced that there's real value. You've provided the value once you get in there, and the design and the setup makes it really effortless so that they can navigate through all the features effortlessly and cleanly so that it's a great experience and they want to come back.
Great. Got another question. I think I can take this one too from my experience. Who maintains the membership app? Tech support maintenance, as well as monitoring conversations posts. So just my experience as a client, there's minimal to almost no technical work, and that includes even getting the app set up and running. There's a little bit, but not much. It's more of a communications and a membership project. And so at least for ASI, we have a communications person, and the app is under their management, just like our email and our social media is. So, we view it as a communications channel that's managed by the marketing communications person. Brad, do you want to add anything to that?
No, I think that's great, and I would just say that the lens to have, a database administrator or your AMS manager, whoever that person is internally, they are really called upon on the front end. So 90% of our association clients integrate with the AMS, so we're agnostic. Whatever AMS you use, we can integrate with it. And we usually leverage them in the first 90 days, which is the onboarding period. And that's just making sure that, we're testing endpoints, the API works, the production and dev environments match. So, really just kind of ongoing testing back and forth to make sure that things like profile mapping is set up and we're pulling the appropriate fields that you want from your AMS into the app.
Next question. This is a good one I can answer. With using a mobile app in conjunction with your virtual event, how do you encourage people to watch a webinar education seminar from their computer or laptop, or do you encourage them to be on a webinar from their mobile or tablets? I would say you give them the option, and you let people consume the content the way they would like to. I would imagine most people are probably going to do it by the computer or laptop. But the analogy I can use and the way we described it to our attendees is, everybody on here, I'm sure, watches TV at some point. And likely when you're watching TV, your phone is not far from you. And you may actually, and most likely, are doing things on your phone while you're watching TV. It's a similar experience. You're watching, consuming the content on your laptop or your desktop, and you have your mobile phone there for the interaction. To kind of maybe put it in context of the physical event, which is a little hard to do, but it's like the programming is, when you're in the breakout session or in the general session, but then the app is everything else, the conversations, the networking, all the other elements that go on, the Q&A, all of that is through the app. And the good thing, from our standpoint was that we made both available. So if somebody wanted to use an iPad or their phone, mobile phone, they certainly could, and they could certainly pull up everything there if they wanted to. That was an option. Another one is not a mobile app question. Did you say attendance was 60% higher for the virtual event than the live event? If so, was it free or did you charge a registration fee? Yeah, 60% higher, and we did charge a registration fee, but we reduced it. And we actually go into more detail about how we came up with that number in our virtual event guide. So we kind of explain that a bit more. Next one is who creates member profiles, individually created, external, or exported from IMIS data internal? And I can answer this one too. So it's bidirectional integration. Whether you're an IMIS client or you use another AMS, the member profile is bidirectional, and you control what fields and information you want to be available in the app, and you control what fields you want to be editable or read only. And I can tell you from our experience, as well as from talking at least to other IMIS clients who use it, one of the things that everybody says is that first thing a member does when they download the app is they go pull up in their profile and they add their picture and they check their information. And it reminds me of how 15, 20 years ago when everybody made that available online, and we thought that was going to clean up association data, and it did to a certain degree. But what we're finding is it really does on the mobile side. So if you have a need for your members to keep data up to date, mobile is 100% the way to go. Next one, and this probably is our final one as we're getting close to the end of the hour, is does the addition of the app tend to reduce internal workload in some departments? I'm picturing a scenario where some members refuse to download another app, so you're juggling content for yet another program. Brad, I'm happy to answer this one too, if you're okay with
Yeah,
that.
take it.
Yeah. So, Andy, I'm happy to talk to you more offline if you want. So there's two questions there. The second part, as you're talking about members with multiple apps. So we definitely encourage clients to think of the Clouder app as your central app, your year-round app, and that is everything. So that would replace your event app. But are some organizations that are big enough that do find it works well to have a couple apps working at the same time. So that is an option if you need to do that. The first question though is more about staff. So does the addition of the app tend to reduce internal workload in some departments? So that's an interesting question. So we view the app as a member benefit and a way to improve member satisfaction, member engagement, and member communication. Not as a way to make life easier on staff. But if you just follow the results of the app, higher satisfaction, higher engagement, meeting member demands for a mobile app, which you may or may not have now, but I guarantee you 1, 2, 3 years you're going to have a lot. So in that scenario, yeah, I mean I say it would reduce internal workload in the sense of the benefits it generates. So I know it's kind of like a circular answer, but Andy, happy to answer that a bit more after the fact. So with that, I know we packed it all in, and want to say thank you to everybody for joining right before the Memorial Day weekend. I hope you all have a great weekend. Again, take a moment to answer the survey questions when it completes, and we'll also be sending everybody out a recording of the webinar. Brad, anything to add, or before we
No, just
sign
thank
up? Okay.
everybody for being here, and thank you, Edward, for sharing your very specific experiences that continue to be ongoing. And echo your comment about the long weekend. Everybody enjoy it. Be safe. If there's anything we can do to support you in your journey into thinking about mobile, please reach out to us. We'd be happy to help.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. And again, everybody have a great rest of your day and a fantastic weekend.